Welcome to the All 49ers weekly chat. We are the All 49ers writers. I'm Grant Cohn. To my left is Maverick Pollock. To his left is Niner Nick. Below him is Jose Sanchez. And to his right is Leo Luna. We're going to be debating the big topics of the last week from the 49ers. A lot has happened since we talked 7 days ago. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to do what we did last week. Agree or disagree. I'm going to say a statement. We're going to go around in a circle, and everyone's going to say if they agree or disagree with it. We're going to get real opinionated and real mad at each other today. Starting off with George Kittle, who did not opt out of the season as Mike Silver speculated he might. So now that we know George Kittle is in, the statement I want you to agree or disagree with is that George Kittle will sign an extension before the regular season starts. Leo, why don't you start us off?
This is tough because each day that goes by, that doubt creeps in. I've been saying that he's going to get it last week, that he's going to get it before the season starts. I don't want to switch it up on a weekly basis. I'm going to stick on that. Kyle Shanahan seems to be confident. He says it's going to happen sooner or later. They're just figuring out a couple more things if they want to add another player. If not, see what the cap comes up to after roster cuts. It'll get done.
I'm disagree. It's not going to get done, and it's too much of confounding variables that are going into this. And I feel like Leo, in the next week or two, you're definitely going to hop on this side soon. And personally, I don't care what Kyle Shanahan said. Oh, I'm not worried about it. Of course, he's going to say that.
Yeah.
What are they going to say? Like, hey, I'm worried that this is not going to get done. Like, who's ever said that? It's always window dressing with that stuff. So I'm just going to stick on the side that his contract is so complicated because of the cap. I'm going to keep hammering that point. Of course, they want to sign him. He's the clear-cut best player on the team, the one that keeps the train from derailing. It's not going to happen before the regular season.
Now, I'm going to switch from where I was at last week at this time. I'm going to disagree and say the deal doesn't get done. I worry about the 49ers managing their star players. You know, we've seen it with DeForest Buckner. And then when you look at guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, with Jimmy Garoppolo's contract at the time, it was after he played 6 games. So he wasn't like a superstar, so to speak, at that time. You know, the contract suggests otherwise, but the contract, like the real terms behind it weren't what it showed, right? It wasn't that 6-year, $125, $130 million contract that it looked like. So I worry about the 49ers' ability to take care of this Kittle deal just because we have DeForest Buckner was traded. You know, will they give in to his demands? There's just too many variables, and I just don't see it getting done. I think they're trying to lowball him. Oh, sorry, Maverick.
No, you go as long as you want. I think they can definitely get the deal done if they wanted to, but I think it's kind of hard at this moment just with everything going on. But it would be a great PR move to just lock up Kittle, and I think that would get a lot of people excited. And maybe right before the season, if they do have a deal in the works, they can get it done right then, and that'll get a lot of people excited. So I'll go with bye for now, but I'm starting to go toward the not where I was last week.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to disagree with the statement that I said. I'm going to sell this. I don't think he's going to sign. I believe that the Niners have offered him a contract. I believe there's a contract offer on the table and he can sign it whenever he wants. I don't believe they're going to up it anytime soon. And I think if Kittle were to agree to it, he would have agreed already. I think all this speculation about opting out of the season, is he going to do it or not, was just idle threats to maybe get the Niners back to try to bring him back to the negotiating table and see if they can up the Niners offer a little bit. And the Niners are saying, no, man, you're on your rookie deal. You got to finish out your rookie deal. And then we can negotiate next year if at that point. But if you want to sign now, if you want some financial security now, take our offer. I think that's how they're handling it. So Kittle could capitulate, but I think that would be a really bad look by his agent. I mean, his agent doesn't have a lot of, just real quick, and then you can go ahead. His agent doesn't have a lot of big time clients. I mean, Kittle's the 7th best player in the league, according to his peers. If Jack Becta accepts like a contract that makes him like the 100th highest paid player in the league or something like 12, 13 million, he's never going to get a high profile player to hire him again. So this is a big moment for Becta as well. Leo, what were you going to say?
The 49ers in Prague, they love fluctuating the cap numbers, whether it's backloaded, front-loaded, whatever it may be. And this is where I could see it getting done. Since the cap does drop down to 175 next season, after roster cuts, they could have upwards to 19, 17, 18 million dollars. They could decide, you know what, we're going to extend Kittle now. We're going to give him 16 million this year, and then next year bring it back down to a more realistic number, say about 8, 7 or so, to try to help that cap number when it comes to that 175 million, rather than saying, oh crap, now we have to try to struggle with this contract a little more with a lesser cap, team cap.
Yep, and
Okay.
I'm gonna piggyback off of Leo. You know, when we see the contracts like Quan Alexander and Weston Richburg, they look so much bigger than they actually are. And I feel like when it comes to the negotiating with George Kittle, you know, we've seen like we can cut Alexander next year and Weston Richburg next year, you know.
Right.
And I feel like this is the age of guaranteed money. Everybody's focusing on what is the guaranteed money. And, you know, when Parag has been a master of limiting the guaranteed money and making sure there's outs in all these contracts, which I think isn't going to work in this age when guys like Kirk Cousins and Jordan Love, the rookie, isn't his contract all fully guaranteed? These guys are trying to get as much guaranteed money as possible, and I think that it's just not going to happen before the season starts.
I think what you're saying, Nick, is that the Niners have a history of cashing out players with no leverage, guys who are young in their career, coming off an injury or maybe a career year. But when it comes to paying top players, top pass rushers, top wide receivers, all the way going back to Terrell Owens, the Niners organization has been, we would like to protect ourselves a little bit. We feel more comfortable cashing out players on lower tier positions, fullbacks, inside linebackers. Yeah, they are a little bit of money ball with deeper pockets. So I think that's a good call, Niner Nick. Let's move on to the next topic. And Maverick, you're going to start us off this time. The statement I'm presenting to you is that Jordan Reed was a smart signing by the 49ers.
Well, I mean, as long as Kittle doesn't have a contract for future seasons, it's always good to bring in guys that can compete and maybe, I mean, not that Jordan Reed would ever be what George Kittle is, but put some pressure on him and keep guys in the room. And especially as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks with COVID-19, that you need as many guys. You changed your mind on the 3 quarterbacks just for that, just having a guy that can step in and provide capable snaps at tight end as long as he's healthy. But then again, if he's hurt, just cut him. It's not like it's that big of a deal.
Sure. Nick?
Yep. Have the numbers on Reed's contract come out yet? I know it was incentive based, but
I haven't seen it.
Very minimum.
Yeah.
I just assume it's base minimum.
Yeah. So like there's not really, you can't call it a bad signing because what's it going to hurt the team the most? You know, the best kid, it's one of those just low risk, high reward signings where if he reverts to his old form, great. That's a great pass catching number 2 tight end, something that the team didn't have last year. And then at the worst, you cut him and there's minimal loss. So I have no problem with the signing. I agree that it's a good signing.
I'm definitely going to agree with that too, especially since I said that they actually needed Jordan Reed, and not so much specifically that type of player, but a tight end too. And the fact that they wanted that's been a goal since February and March just speaks volumes. I would lean towards more Delaney Walker when we last talked about it, mainly because of like Reed's concussion syndrome. Because a little bit every time Reed's going to take a hit, we're all going to stand up and be like, is he okay? Is he all right? It's going to be so much paranoia with this guy. But assuming he is healthy, and I think he will have more of a better chance because now he's not going to be getting that demand to be a starter, getting that demand to garner that attention because there's going to be Kittle. It's going to be a ton of other weapons that people are going to have to key in on versus Reed. Everyone would just already be ready to hit him because they knew where the ball was going. So I think that's fantastic signing. Now it's just going to be so much amazing creativity from Shanahan, whether it's 22 personnel or 13, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of options on the table for him.
Well, yeah, it was a great signing. He's obviously not going to get a crazy amount of snap counts, so that's going to help him actually to play through a full 16-game season. And this automatically, not saying it didn't before, but it gives the 49ers the best 22 personnel in the NFL. So now you have the best tight end, best fullback. The Mostert had the most yards per carry than any other running back last season. And now you have arguably the second best tight end too in the NFL behind Dallas Goedert. So hands down, best 22 personnel in the NFL. Great signing.
Okay. I can't really disagree with any of you guys. I mean, it's low risk, it's high reward. He's a hell of a player when he's healthy. The only thing I would say is for taking a step back, we can look closely at his strengths and weaknesses. He's a hell of a receiver. Theoretically, he's going to make 22 personnel better, but is it ever a good signing to sign someone who's had 7 concussions? That's a lot of concussions. Really. I mean, I think after 7, you should retire in any sport. Boxing, soccer, basketball. I think the fact that he didn't play last year, the fact that there's a reason no one signed Jordan Reed, and he's a former Pro Bowler. I mean, the Seahawks could have used him. They brought in Greg Olson, who's 77 years old, instead of Jordan Reed. I don't know. I mean, I'm with Jose on that one. If I were them, I would have probably signed Delaney Walker instead, even though Delaney Walker is 36 and hasn't played much the last 2 years, just because I think the ankle injury is more, I don't know, you can deal with that better than 7 concussions.
Yeah.
So that's just the only thing I'm legitimately worried about Jordan Reed. It's like watching a boxer who's been knocked out 7 or 8 times, like,
and the rest
face
not calling
down
it
on the campus, counted to 10. It's like, do I need to see you box again, man? I don't really want to. Like, are you guys excited to watch Roy Jones Jr.? And Roy Jones Jr. is 50 years old, but he's had some. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know what I'm saying, man? If let's say it this way, let's say that he makes the team, the Niners cut Ross Dwelly, he gets an 8th concussion week 2. He has to go on IR, and now the hope of Jordan Reed costs you a young number 2 tight end. That's the way that this could be a bad signing. So as long as they keep it in perspective, it should be fine. It's just I hope he doesn't get hurt. I don't want to watch that.
Do you think there's a possibility they cut Dwelly?
Yeah, there's a possibility they cut Dwelly. Now, I don't think – now, if we're right that they're planning on doing a lot of 22 personnel, you need 4 tight ends. Because if that's your base offense and you only have 3 and you lose 1, then you're in a position where you may not be able to even use that personnel grouping. You use 2, now you definitely can't use it. So I think Dwelly should be okay, but he's going to have to beat out people who were probably second-round pick. He's going to have to beat out Dante Pettis. It's better than Dante Pettis. But there's roster politics there.
So if 4 wide receivers make the roster, that cuts away a spot from a wide receiver, right? So instead we were speculating once Debo went down, maybe 7 wide receivers make the team. Maybe that number goes down to 6. So
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Leo, you're going to start us off. The Deion Jordan signing was smart by the 49ers. And Leo, I want you to start this off because you had a very interesting article on this topic just yesterday.
Thank you. Yeah, it automatically makes that depth in the defensive line better because you have similar players in Hyder and Blair. They're more of those power rushers, not necessarily the speed like D Ford is. And then you just look at last year, they had guys like Valoga and Zettel having to play major moments for the 49ers. Like Zettel had quite a few Super Bowl snaps and had 0 effect on that. Deion Jones, I would imagine, would be much better than what Zettel provided for the team last year. And he was, according to the numbers, the pressure rate last season than what Zettel was. So it automatically makes him better. They don't have to worry so much about D Ford. Obviously, there's a downgrade between D Ford and Deion Jordan, but it's just a lot better options than they had last season.
Agree 100%. And I'm just happy they didn't pick up Ziggy Ansah. I know everyone likes to fall in love with that name, but what's the best ability out there? Availability, right? And they already have their hands full worrying about when's this guy D4 getting injured? And I know everyone talks about, well, he's healthy now. That's what everyone says every offseason about this guy. It's never a matter of if, but when he's going to get injured. And I know it's not Marcus Golden the way Nick's been hammering the table for the last 2 or 3 months. But I totally always agreed with them. Maybe not Golden because he might have been a little higher. I don't know how much the Giants got from him. They probably got him for
$5.5 million.
Yeah, that was a little too much for personally, I think, for the Niners at that point for a depth player. But they did need some depth. I'm glad for Deion Jordan that he's signing up because he was decent with the Raiders last year in a rotation role after he came in mid to late season. So totally agree with this. Good. Now you got more depth in the case of any COVID things that could happen to keep players off or injuries. Just it's always good to keep that front always fresh and consistently flowing.
Yeah, to go back to Marcus Golden a little bit. So he had this weird clause in his contract where if he went unsigned throughout the entire offseason, his rights reverted back to the Giants at like 110% pay increase or something like that. So he's making $5.5 million this year. But it makes me think if because the key word for me is speed. They needed a speed rusher behind D Ford because they had other pass rushers last year. But once D Ford's speed wasn't on the field, the defense was not the same. So that was the big thing for me is finding a speed rusher. Deion Jordan has that speed, but I wish it was Marcus Golden. It makes you think if you were to sign a guy who was going, hasn't been signed 3-4 months into the offseason, and he has an opportunity to play on a championship contender, which is loaded talent around him. I'm sure you could have signed him from the $3.5-4 million range. I don't know what the Deion Jordan number is, but overall, I'm happy with the signing. They got that speed that they needed behind Ford. So yeah, good signing. low risk, high reward, similar to Jordan, but more of a position of need. They needed it behind Ford.
I mean, it never hurts to sign a guy that's very low risk financially, but maybe a high risk with his behavior and substance abuse problems. He's been suspended a couple times, but getting him back with the Niners, having his former collegiate teammate Eric Armstead with him. The Niners always have to have 2 ducks on their line at all times, and they feel that with Deion Jordan. And maybe he'll be able to not necessarily find his 2013, 2012 success, but be able to just come in, do a little more than what Anthony Zettel did last year, and I think that's all they're really after from him.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with this. I'm gonna buy this. I feel that Deion Jordan was the right choice. When it first came out that they were thinking about him or Ziggy Ansah, I was thinking, well, they got to go with Ziggy Ansah because Ansah at least was good at one point and Deion Jordan never was. But Ansah is not good anymore. He was a total bust for the Seahawks last year. They needed him. They had no pass rush and he gave them nothing. And I think he's probably done. I think that's interesting about Deion Jordan. He missed 2 years. He's relatively fresh for a 30-year-old. And last year with the Raiders, I believe he had 2 sacks in 7 games. So that's something. Am I wrong? He had 2 sacks in some amount of games.
I think like 3 or something like that. But yeah 2 or 2.5, something like that. But yeah, he definitely was productive in that defense that actually needed pass rushing. So the fact you stand up for a defensive front that was arguably pretty bad in the Raiders, that says someone for sure.
No doubt. So I think the Niners made the right choice between the two. And as Nick said, I mean, he really does fill a need. Every time D Ford was out, the Niners had no one who would replace him. They don't need a great speed rusher. They just need a speed rusher who's better than, say, Cassius Marsh. Is Deion Jordan better than Cassius Marsh?
I would think so.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, Cassius Marsh is on a team and Deion Jordan wasn't for a while. What do you think, Maverick?
Well, he's not as good at roundhouse kicks, so
no.
Let's get that.
Those are some really nice roundhouse kicks.
The Karate Kid,
yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch it up. I want to do a bonus topic right now that I didn't prepare you guys for, but because we have Nick Mullins' grandfather watching, hello from Hoover, Alabama.
Larry
I'm going to throw
Mullins.
this one out right now, wild card. Nick Mullins is the most important backup on the 49ers in 2020. Agree or disagree, Maverick?
Well, I mean, quarterbacks are usually the most important backups just because when they are free agents, they get a lot of money. As the Chiefs saw last year with Matt Moore having to come in and kind of keep them afloat long enough for Patrick Mahomes to come back. You need a quality backup, and I think Mullins is. I remember before last season, The Ringer wrote an article about how Nick Mullins is the best backup in the whole NFL, and I think he probably is at least top 3, and probably is the top 32 quarterback if you had to win a game today.
Ooh, spicy. I like that. And I agree, especially in this system. For what Kyle Shanahan wants his quarterback to do, Nick Mullins can do all of it and at a high level. I believe that. Nick, what do you think?
I agree. You need to have a backup quarterback. And we've already seen what Nick Mullins can do in the 49ers offense. He can move the ball. He can put points up on the board. You know, this isn't the 2018 team that had a horrible defense. He can win games in the 49ers offense. And the fall off behind what's behind him, you know, with Beathard. You need Nick Mullins is the most important backup. I agree with that.
Yeah, totally agree. No question that he is. I mean, I still think there'll be a little bit of trouble though if Jimmy goes down regardless. But having Nick as a backup, you know, you could be a lot worse. You could have Matt Moore or something like that. You could have freaking, I don't know who else is out there. You could have Mike Glennon. You could have CJ Beathard. Oh wait, they do have him. But Nick Mullins, you keep him. It's a much more revamped offense. He actually has a defense where he doesn't need to get a ton. Well, actually, he's going to get a lot more possessions now if he does come out there. So if he rolls in there, he's more seasoned. And I remember just talking to them just a couple of times where last season in the locker room, just talking about how he actually got a lot of players actually credited him for why the scout team was ready, especially against I know he's not Aaron Rodgers, but they specifically, I remember one time someone I believe Dre Greenlaw mentioned how he got him prepared for the Packers game and about Aaron Rodgers and such like that. So his attention to detail and trying to replicate, give him the best look and how he's even choppy. I mean, excuse me, not choppy. How do you say talks trash in practice? So that always gets overlooked. So he for sure, if he comes up and steps up, he's a great option for a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the quarterback position is the most important position in all of football. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. Nick Mullins, he can get it done. He's probably the best backup quarterback in all of football. If Jimmy does go down, obviously nobody wants that to happen, and hopefully that does not happen this season. But with COVID going around, you never know at the end of the day. And
that's the point.
Yeah, the 49ers, they had a chance to trade him this offseason and get some draft picks. They may have been able to get a third. They said no. That shows how important he is to this team.
Yep. Yeah. Marco Martinez in the comment section is like going crazy because this is a story he wants to write for us, and he's written a few stories for us in the past. You're absolutely right, Marco. I want to this is your topic. I want to piggyback off of why I think Nick Mullins is the most important backup. I mean, because of COVID, I feel like this is a season where every team's starting quarterback could miss a month. You have no idea. I mean, we don't even know if we could have it right now. It's a lot of times you're asymptomatic. Who knows? Every team could have a game or 3 or 4 where they don't have their starting quarterback and they got to win with their backup. So the Niners have a guy they know they can win with. And yes, they received trade offers for him and they didn't want to give him up. I have a Nick Mullins story. I don't know if you guys read this article by Mike Silver. It came out during the Super Bowl. It was about the genius of Kyle Shanahan, and he interviewed Rich Scangarello. And Scangarello was talking about Nick Mullins. This was against the Rams in 2018 in LA. Nick Mullins, Kyle Shanahan calls a play and wants Mullins to make a specific read and throw to a specific person. Mullins doesn't do it. He notices that Aqib Talib's playing off, that Kyle Shanahan's direction would have led to an interception. So he goes through his progressions, throws to someone else, completes the play. Kyle Shanahan freaks out. Over the headphone, he goes, who is coaching this kid? I'm going to call the play again, and I want him to throw where I want him to throw. So he calls it again. Nick Mullins reads the play, sees again that Aqib Talib is playing cloud coverage, and if he throws the ball, it would have been picked, goes through his progressions, completes the pass. Shanahan flips out. So the thing I like about Nick is that he really is BDN. I mean, he really has big cojones. He's the backup. He was 23. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to make the right play. Sorry, Kyle. And he was right. And a little bit with Jimmy sometimes, he makes these boneheaded decisions on the field. And I'm like, dude, are you even thinking? Are you even going through your progressions? And sometimes it's like maybe he just does what Kyle says because Kyle's very, very forceful. I'm going to call this play. This guy's going to be open. Make the throw. And Nick actually thinks for himself, and he understands the offense as well as Kyle or as well as anyone other than Kyle. So I think I really, really admire the preparation, the intelligence, and the moxie that backup kid has. A lot of people compare him to Case Keenum. He's way better than Case Keenum, in my opinion, my humble opinion. All right, let's move on.
Is he an unrestricted free agent next year?
No, he's restricted because he was exclusive rights.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. DJ Reed was a big loss for the 49ers. Who did I start with last time? Leo?
I started.
Okay, Leo,
Yeah.
you start this time.
No. He played 12 snaps in one-score games all last season, and he was active for every single game last season. So, no, they signed Jamar Taylor in this offseason, and he's very similar to what DJ Reed can do. In fact, he has more experience than DJ Reed, so they won't miss him at all. It's fine.
I'm going to agree with that. And that's mainly because how many times have we harped on this, how many secondary players are going to be potentially hitting the free market and being different teams next season? Because it's like half the secondary is pretty much free agent, right? And DJ Reed, at least he's like a multi-dimensional player in terms of where you can put him interchangeably. And at least like the 49ers would have had someone in their system, a young prospect that they could have hopefully groomed to fill in at some point versus now it's like, oh, now we got to force our hands and cash out and try to hold on to more of these players like K'Wan Williams, especially whose leverage is really up against it now, especially without DJ Reed, which I know I've seen Nick talk about. And I couldn't agree more once he said that. It's going to be, I don't say it's a huge loss right now, but looking down the future, we could be kicking ourselves and saying like, wow, they could have kept him, a nice rotational player. You know, why'd you shell out all this money, you know, and you're wondering why you can't hold on to all these other players because it's all about keeping the core together. I understand that, but at some point you're going to have to coach some of these younger prospects up and see what they can do so you can get them on that rookie deal. So I think it's a big loss right now.
Yeah, I agree. At first glance, you don't think it's a big loss because the reality going in even before the injury is that he was going to be K'Wan Williams' backup. You know, he wasn't going to have a big role. This defense is so elite that you're not going to be hurting because you lost the presence of your backup nickelback, right? So as far as 2020 goes, this is not going to have a large impact on the season unless Williams gets hurt. But looking ahead at 2021, just like Jose touched on, almost the entire all the cornerbacks, your top 3 cornerbacks are all the top 4, if you're going to count Emmanuel Mosley being a restricted free agent or exclusive restricted free agent, they're all set to hit the market, and having that backup in DJ Reed that's familiar with the system that you can move around. Williams just has all the more leverage right now going in his contract negotiations. And if the team can't bring him back next year, having Reed in his 4th year in the system would have been helpful. So it's just similar to the DJ Reed signing. If a scenario unfolds where Ross Dwelley gets cut, DJ Reed gets hurt, you lose Dwelley. One of those, you just have to wait to see how it all plays out, but it certainly has the potential to be a big loss.
And Nick, to piggyback off what you mentioned with that injury, what happens if K1 gets injured? Who's probably going to drop down? Tavarius Moore, and I didn't think Moore can actually cover in the slot well. I mean, of course, in the Super Bowl he was guarding Travis Kelce, but still, I just don't know. What are you going to drop back? Who are you going to drop down there? You're going to make Jimmy Ward go back down there or something like that?
Jamar Taylor, right? Well, Jamar Taylor signed.
Yeah, you're going to have to try to coach if Jamar can fill in. I know they didn't
move Mosley in there and bring in Akello.
You could do that too. So they're going to have to figure it out. Just coach these guys up.
Well, remember against the Saints, K1 Williams went down and DJ Reed comes in, and I believe the Saints scored 2 straight touchdowns to finish off that game once K1 was out. So I'm not sure. DJ Reed does provide a lot of depth, but I'm not sure he provides good depth, like quality depth when on the field. He's in a return game, but he had fumble problems in that also. And on defense, it's not like he was a lockdown nickel corner when he came in. How much of a drop-off truly is Jamar Taylor from DJ Reed?
Those are fair points. I don't think he's a huge loss. I was never impressed with DJ Reed when he was on the field, but they developed him for years. They drafted a punter over Chauncey Gardner-Johnson because they allegedly were confident in DJ Reed and wanted to see that project through. I don't think they wanted to get rid of him. If he'd hurt himself in OTAs, they could have put him on IR and kept him. I think they kind of felt like they were in a position where they had no choice. And I think the real issue here is not that they lost DJ Reed and that they wasted basically 2 years of developing him, is that the Seahawks needed a nickelback. And the Niners basically gifted them and helped them fill an issue that they have because of Quentin Dunbar being on the commissioner's exempt list. So it's not a huge loss, but I think he may have a future. And if you look at his athletic profile, as Nick pointed out in an article yesterday, it's quite similar to K1 Williams, who wasn't a stud nickelback right away and was an undrafted free agent. DJ Reed's only 23, I believe.
23.
They have a future.
23.
So it's not a backbreaker, and they're not going to notice it this year. But down the line, that guy could be the starting nickel for Seattle. And every time they come to Levi's, you're like, he should be on the Niners.
Absolutely.
Okay. No, I just don't see it. To be honest, I don't see it. I don't think the drop-off is that far from Jamar Taylor. I don't think DJ Reed affects the win or loss record. And if Seattle does decide to play him at nickel cornerback, that's good for the 49ers offense.
Ha! I like that take. Good stuff, Leo. All right, let's move on. Travis Benjamin is a big loss for the 49ers. Who's starting?
I mean, I wrote about Benjamin 2 weeks ago, I think, hoping that he would provide a good slot weapon and sometimes a vertical threat on the outside. So I think that does hurt them a little because he probably was the fastest receiver in track, at least on the 49er roster. Brandon Ayuk might be pad faster, but I think it hurts him a little bit. It's not like it's like losing Debo or losing Richie James, even, where he knows the system more a little. I think Benjamin was a borderline guy and now kind of opens up the receiver competition a little less.
I disagree. Not a big loss at all, losing Travis Benjamin. I was a huge advocate, for getting in a veteran wide receiver. And when people would respond to me in the comment section, like, we have Travis Benjamin, that's our veteran, I had to laugh it off. I never took Travis Benjamin seriously. Look at Marquise Goodwin last year, having that speedster. He was non-effective. He wasn't a threat, and the 49ers still had such a successful offense. Jimmy Garoppolo struggles to throw the ball downfield. He was supposed to be that vertical threat. They don't need that vertical threat. It's a luxury in the 49ers offense to just really have someone to take the top off of a defense, but no one's going to remember that Travis Benjamin was even on the training camp roster. Even if he was to stick around, he wasn't going to make the team, in my opinion. So it's not a big loss whatsoever.
Yeah, he wasn't a big loss. And I know I just wrote like the other day that a lack of a vertical threat kind of caps the offense. It's more so because you really want Kyle Shanahan to really let loose, right? And of course, if he has a vertical threat somewhere there, at least now it's like, all right, now he can really get the full-on creativity. So I know that's not the main crux of their offense. I know they like to go within 20 yards and get the ball in the receiver's hands and do damage. But at least if they had that nice little wrinkle, you just never know in some situation. Maybe there's only a single high. You just want to like keep throwing it deep and just keep challenging them. I mean, we did see some instances, Emmanuel Sanders against the Saints catches that ball. And then in the Super Bowl, they also win that last. I know that was like almost like that was pretty much a last ditch effort. But still, they had moments where they could have had some deep plays. And so I think Benjamin would have made it. But is it a big loss? No. It would have been nice to have, and Nick perfectly said it's more of a luxury. So I mean, it caps it to a certain degree because now they really can't go deep. It's just wondering if they do go deep, who they're gonna have. I mean, I know us three, me, Grant, and Leo, like a few weeks ago, we talked about it, like Dante Pettis, but she's kind of a little too timid every time he tries to do those routes. I mean, at that point, they're phenomenal offense, but they'll be missing that just a little bit.
So I'm sticking to similar to DJ Reed here. No, it's not a loss at all. He's not going to affect the win or loss column. And frankly, he has a drop problem. Yeah, he could have ran that route that Emmanuel Sanders did in the Super Bowl, but who knows if he drops that? So it's not a big loss at all.
That's true. He does have a drop problem. He's older. He's missed games. He really didn't play well for the Chargers, and he was playing with Phillip Rivers, who's great. Now he's going to be playing with a quarterback who isn't as accomplished, but also good. Well, no, he won't be playing with him because he's gone. So it's not that big of a deal. Although, like, Travis Benjamin isn't a loss to any team. But the role he was supposed to fill, the one speedster on the team, I do think that they need that. And fortunately for them, there's guys available. They could get Taylor Gabriel right now. And I don't think he'd be any worse than Travis Benjamin. I don't know if he have a better shot to make the team. But I do think they should bring in someone, unless this Brandon Ayuk kid is a deep threat that I didn't notice. Because I watched a fair amount of his film, and I didn't see it. He's fast with the ball in his hands, but I didn't see him just running by corners down the sideline without like a stutter move or just straight. I didn't see it. Maybe he did. I underestimated Deebo Samuel's speed coming into the league. When I saw him in training camp, I was like, wow. But still, he didn't win like down the sideline last year. So I think it's important to have that speed element. And we've said that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't throw that pass well. Well, he still hasn't started 30 games. He's another year removed from a torn ACL. Maybe he can add that to his game. Maybe that'll be something he can do this year, and he's going to need a deep threat. So keep an eye on Taylor Gabriel or someone like that, because it seems like Benjamin was on the roster for a reason, and now they got to fill that. Unless I'm tripping.
I'd like Taylor Gabriel. That's a good sign.
Yeah. I'd rather have Taylor Gabriel than Travis Benjamin.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well. Okay, moving on. Rahim Mostert will be the 49ers starting running back week 1 against the Cardinals. Agree or disagree?
I'm going to disagree. I know he called himself the starter, but I think in his mind, in Shanahan's offense, whoever gets the most carries is the starter. And I think that's what he's alluding to on that. But it's going to be Tevin Coleman, first play of the season for the 49ers, but Rahim Mostert's going to outcarry him in that game.
Yeah, he's not. I just wrote about it. He's not going to be the starting running back. He should be a starting running back just to have that privilege and even get even more carries than a split. I'd say even do it like a 75-25 type of split, not the 60-40 or the 55-45 that it's been looking for the good portion of last season. Mostert, it's obvious. He's the clear-cut, well ahead, better running back. Where Tevin Coleman is a good running back at sustaining the success of the offense, Rahim Mostert takes us to another level. So that's why he should deserve just that honor. I know it makes not to us, especially to the fans, it's like, oh, who cares? They're still getting the carries. It's like, yeah, but that sometimes is a big deal to these players. The same way, like, oh, it's a big deal what number I wear. It's a big deal if my name is on there as a starter too. And then who knows what kind of incentives are in his contract, the newly, that maybe it could be like, hey, how many starts did you get and such? So that could matter. And definitely play. So he definitely deserves it, but I don't see any way week 1 and even going forward, he's going to get that title.
I agree. He should be the starter. Will he be? Probably not. I like how, or a point that hasn't been brought up yet, Tevin Coleman's set to be a free agent next year, so I could see the 49ers just pounding him away, giving him a higher volume of carries, just because after this year, I don't see them re-signing him. They're going to get all of what they can out of him. I believe Mostert's under contract for maybe 2 more years. Right? I don't think he's set to be a free agent following this season. So maybe they'll use Mostert in a similar role before really leaning on him in the future and just max out Tevin Coleman, give him as many carries as possible. And like Leo kind of touched on, Kyle Shanahan having that mindset of whoever gets the more carries consistently is the starter. But without a doubt, Rahim Mostert should be that guy.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like Leo said, the guy that gets most carries is really the starter. He might not get that tally in the Pro Football Reference stat area, but I mean, all it really matters when contract talks come up is how many yards on how many carries you got, not how many starts you had last season. So I think he kind of will lead the 49ers in both categories, but Tevin Coleman might get all the starts this year if he's healthy.
I think it's clear Shanahan wants to use a committee and he wants to start Tevin Coleman. But you can't always do what you want to do. If you have a running back whose career average is 6 yards a carry, you owe it to the franchise to start him and give him 18 carries a game until he shows he can't handle it. Mm-hmm. And the way that they used Mostert last year, I thought was controversial. Every time they upped his workload, he played well. And then they split carries between him and Coleman in the Super Bowl and lost. I think that's one of the things that Shanahan has to live down is the fact that they just didn't give the ball to Mostert in the Super Bowl. If they do that again week 1 and lose, Shanahan opens himself up to major criticism that doesn't need to be there. It's like having Terrell Davis and forcing his backup ahead of him for no good reason, just to keep him fresh. So what I think Shanahan's going to do, and I agree with you, he doesn't want to start Mostert and he wants to start Coleman, but he also doesn't want to open himself up to obvious criticism from everyone around the league. So I'm guessing he starts Mostert week 1 and gives him a big workload. And what Shanahan would do is have a short leash. The first fumble, the first time he has a bad, because he's had fumbling issues in the past. Mm-hmm. Say like, okay, we'll start you. Fine. We'll give you 19 carries week 1. Fine. Let's see how you do. If you fumble, Tevin Coleman's starting week 2 and we're going away from you. So I think they may appease me and you and the fans and Mostert and make everyone happy. But as soon as he fumbles one time, they could go back to Coleman. So I'm saying I'm disagreeing with you guys, but in kind of a weaselly way, because I think Shanahan's going to find a way to get back to Coleman eventually. Fair. Okay. All right. 2 more. And now these are the big topics. Second to last, Jimmy Garoppolo is the next Brett Favre. Agree or disagree?
Am I up first?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he has like some like Brett Favre tendencies where he's a gunslinger and he's not afraid to necessarily throw the pick, but I don't know if he has the same arm that Brett Favre did, and definitely not the same like sneaky running ability that Favre had, where it's not like he ran a 4.40 or anything, but he could get you the first down. And maybe it was just he was limited with his knee last year, but Jimmy isn't as willing to run as Favre was. So I would say he's good, but it's kind of unfair to label him as Brett Favre right now.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Brett Favre, so I gotta disagree with that. He has a high ceiling. Jimmy Garoppolo has a high ceiling. They have that same gunslinger mentality, you know. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, I have a hard time seeing him reaching Brett Favre as his ceiling.
Why'd you come up with this, Grant? It's obvious. Hell no. No way on God green earth is Jimmy Garoppolo going to sniff Brett Favre. There's just no way. The only thing I can draw a similar comparison is if Jimmy gets hit, he more often than not, even though I did see him shirk and like start to get a little timid when he gets hit, will sometimes still get up and just keep delivering the ball, even though he's been hit all day. You know, example of the Rams in week 16. So, I mean, no, he's not the next Brett Favre. He can't move. He's not going to extend the plays. He's not going to win. No, there's just too much to say, man. I could go on for forever with this.
What do you think, Leo?
Well, hopefully not, because Brett Favre. Well, with the INTs, they both just sling it and trust their arms more, than anything in football. But the thing is, Brett Favre only had one season where he threw less than 13 interceptions. I believe Jimmy Garoppolo could do better than that. And hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo wins more than one Super Bowl like Brett Favre did. So hopefully he's not the next Brett Favre if that's the case.
Favre is a Hall of Famer, I believe. Okay,
True.
So obviously they have nothing in common. Nothing. Favre had like the strongest arm of all time, and Jimmy doesn't. But I think in terms of their mentality and their personality, they're very similar. And I'll explain. In terms of their personality, all the teammates love Brett Favre. He was the most popular dude in that locker room forever. And from what I understand, everyone loves Jimmy Garoppolo in that organization, from the backups to the starters to the front office and the coaching staff, everyone likes Jimmy Garoppolo. Second thing, Jimmy Garoppolo and Brett Favre are both reckless quarterbacks. I mean, Favre's a great quarterback, but everyone on that team liked him on the Packers, but also agreed that he was just reckless on the field. The decisions he would make, they'd be like, dude, Brett, we love you, but like again. And I think there's a little bit of that with Jimmy. Like he makes he throws some interceptions where the linebacker's standing right in front of him. It's like, dude, can you explain that to us? Like, was that just a reckless decision? And I feel like the best of him is his third down confidence. It's kind of a double-edged sword because he really plays with a reckless abandon that Kaepernick didn't play with, Garcia didn't play with, Alex Smith didn't play with. Really, no Niners quarterback that I ever grew up with played like that. And it works for him. And it's a lot of fun to watch, sort of like Brett Favre 3.5 or whatever you would want to call him. But I do think he's a reckless quarterback that you just can't help but like.
Don't forget Favre's healthy streak where he didn't, was it 500, 400? I'm probably just making up how many streaks. So at least Jimmy doesn't got that in him since he didn't miss a whole season.
Good point. All right, let's move on. Last topic. John Lynch just got his extension. Agree or disagree that he's the most important person in the 49ers front office? Now, that doesn't include Kyle Shanahan, the front office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that includes Jed York, Parag Marath, Adam Peters, Martin Mayhew, the entire scouting team. That's what I'm talking about. Leo, you're up.
Yeah, he is, because if it wasn't for John Lynch, they wouldn't even have Jimmy Garoppolo for even a second-round pick right now. They probably would have signed Kirk Cousins as a free agent quarterback, paid him all this amount of money. Who knows if they could even afford Kittle, Armstead, and the other players on the team, because Kirk Cousins just makes way too much money. And if it's not John Lynch, does that other person have what it takes to overpower Kyle Shanahan's decision on who he wanted as his quarterback? So, yes, he's the most important in that front office.
Gotta agree with Leo there. He is the most important, and we can say for a fact that Kyle Shanahan was going to pay Kirk Cousins. That's why they weren't even scouting players like Patrick Mahomes for that draft, because they pretty much had it set in their mind that Kirk Cousins was going to be a 49er. And thank goodness for John Lynch just giving up a measly second-round pick for a starting quarterback. So much worth it right there. I know they gave him that contract, but still, for how much deadbeat quarterbacks are coming through in and out of the door until Kaepernick had his 2 years, you just needed someone in there. And so that's a great point too, Leo, that at least you have a general manager, even though Kyle Shanahan was the first one there, at least you have a general manager who's not afraid to butt heads. And that's what you need. You really need that difference in opinion. You really need that little bit of friction, which is okay. Friction's okay. A little headbutting's fine. That's good. At least both of these guys care. At least both of these guys are bringing something unique to the table. So it's not just stale and stagnant. It's going somewhere. They're pulling different ideas from different places. So that's something I wouldn't see from other players. From other people in that front office. I was leaning a little towards Parag because of how great he's kept the salary cap, and they're one of the best teams in the league that does that. But at least with Lynch, at least before Parag can even get to that moment of making deals and thinking of what to do with these players, Lynch is the one who was bringing them, even making that a possibility. So Lynch for sure off top.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think John Lynch is a great face to have represent the franchise, which is something I really look at is who's representing your franchise, who's the face of the franchise from a managerial standpoint. That's John Lynch. And he represents the franchise well, like you guys are touching on. He's done a great job acquiring talent over the years. And Kyle Shanahan is up here for me. John Lynch is down here if we're including Kyle Shanahan. But as far as Adam Peters, Parag, Jed, John Lynch right now is so responsible for this turnaround. So I'm going with him as well. I agree.
I agree, but just to go off a different point, I think Jed York made the most important decision in the last couple of years just by going away from that Jerry Jones and Al Davis trajectory of getting too involved with your team and taking a step back and trusting John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and all the other front office members to do their job. And I think that was probably the biggest front office move of the last 20 years for the Niners was for Jed York to take a step back and let his guys he's paying to do their jobs.
That was huge.
Okay, I agree that Lynch is the most important person in the 49ers front office, but I'm going to take it a step further and say that he's the most important person in the 49ers entire organization. More important than Kyle. And I'm going to explain why. I'm not saying he's better at his job than Kyle, though he's really good at his job. But I covered the Harbaugh years, okay? And I know this organization. If Kyle were here without John, Jed York, Parag Marath, and the people in ownership, John York, they'd find a way to mess this up. They'd find a way to alienate Kyle Shanahan and run him off the way they alienated Jim Harbaugh. Because remember, the Niners, their reputation before John Lynch got there was you can't trust him. They'll say anything and they won't stick to it. They have no integrity. They'll leak everything, and they'll undermine their own coaches and players. That's what Jed York's reputation was, Parag Marath's, Trent Baalke's. John Lynch comes in and says, we're not doing leaks anymore. We're not doing that. I'm bringing integrity to this organization. And it's a very important thing because I know the players respect him. He's a borderline Hall of Fame player, but he doesn't lie to them. They know they can trust John Lynch. If he says something's going to happen, he treats them like pros. He doesn't lie. He gives the entire organization integrity. He allows Kyle Shanahan to be the brilliant head coach he is without having to worry if the owner is going to interfere. I think that John Lynch's role is totally necessary. And if they ever were to run him off, they would go back to being the Cleveland West organization that I thought they were before he was there. I mean, just remember the Trent Baalke years. He really, I thought, epitomized what was wrong with that place. You couldn't trust him. The players didn't trust him. They didn't like him. And I think there was a backbiting culture in the 49ers. And John Lynch has, more than anyone, more than Kyle, has erased that and made the 49ers an organization like the Steelers, with integrity. And I think that's been the York's problem. That's what they don't have compared to DeBartolo. So as long as Lynch is there, I really think the Niners can be a first-rate organization beyond football. Because as long as Kyle and Saleh are there, the schemes are going to be good. But that's a different issue. I'm talking about the culture of an organization because we've seen in the past how poor ownership can poison a great team. And John Lynch right now is the shield between Kyle Shanahan and Jed York. And it's a very important shield because we know what Jed York can do, even if he means well. So I'm glad that John Lynch got his extension, and they better keep him around. He said he's not a lifer. They better find a way to make him a lifer. If it means paying him double what he's worth, then do it because there's no salary cap, and Jed York is worth billions of dollars. He needs to understand that John Lynch is the best thing that's happened to this organization in a lot of ways in a long time.
Well, that would be interesting if John Lynch did leave and Jed York did revert back to normal. I feel like he would still take a step back a little bit. I don't know. That's a little hard to say too as well. I think still he would acknowledges like he has already hey, when I start putting more than one fingerprint on this ball, things go downhill. So I'd be very interested to see how that would go. But to put fuel towards your point, Grant, the players love him for sure, and his body of work speaks for itself. Other than he is a player, Hall of Fame player, and he's playing both roles, so he sees it from both sides. Like for example, when they already knew I'm pretty sure he already knew DeForest Buckner wasn't getting paid even before that Super Bowl. That's why it was reported after it. Pretty much they realized, hey, we're not going to be able to get a deal done. And they looked out for him. Same thing with Navarro Bowman. Hey, we're going to just cut you versus just trade you to the place that you don't want to go. So they still, even though like, hey, you're not going to be under our cap, under our team, but at least we're going to try to look out for you because I know how it is being a player. So that's great for him. That's going to send a message to the locker room for anyone that wants to come in, and probably why they fronted Trent Williams that money and why Trent Williams is all ecstatic other than playing for a Super Bowl contender, and just why it worked out with Mostert to a degree and everything. I just wonder, is he going to get done with Kittle though? Because that's still going to be the headline spotlight as we're going in the coming weeks.
Well, I don't know how much authority John Lynch has on that. I mean, I think whether or not Kittle gets paid is probably above him. It's going to be Kyle and Parag and Jed. But for what John is allowed to do, I do think he's incredibly important. Because if it weren't for him, if he weren't in the organization, I think he makes players want to play for the 49ers. I think players want to play for John Lynch because they know that he'll be honest. He won't stab him in the back, and he'll treat him like pros. And there's a lot of GMs around the league who aren't like that. Trent Baalke wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. And look, anyone who's covered or watched the 49ers the last 20 years knows that the Yorks have an integrity issue. They do not have a good reputation around the league. It's been that way forever. I mean, they've had a lot of bad coaches. They've fired a lot of people. They had a lot of bad teams. So I think that as long as John Lynch is here, he's like the deodorant for the franchise. He's not the deodorant for the franchise. He's the deodorant for ownership. And they freaking need antiperspirant, like Axe body spray. And that's what he is.
Well, John Lynch kind of reminds me like what you were saying, like a MLB manager where they always say the backup catchers always make the best managers in the future because they kind of know how to talk to all the guys on the bench where the stars get the great treatment, but the backups need that every day, like knowing when you're going to play the 2 times that week. And John knows what the non-quarterbacks need to succeed, and he helps them out, like you're saying.
Yep. And again, I just want to make the final point. Remember, before John Lynch got there, the Niners were the team that leaked, right? Yep. All the time. Before games, Ian Rappaport said that Jim Harbaugh had lost the locker room before week 1, 2014. That was the Niners. And ever since John Lynch came, he ended that. And to be a serious organization, you got to end that. You have to. So as long as he's there, they're a serious organization. And I used to really make a living off of just ridiculing the 49ers because it's Jed York. I mean, you should be ridiculing him, but as long as John Lynch is there, you got to take them seriously because he is a real pro. And for last week, I thought why is he lying about Jamal Adams? The next day he goes on the radio and lays it all out. He is a very honest person and he doesn't need this job to lie for Jed York. He's going to do what he wants to do. I really appreciate him being there. It feels like he's like a connection to the past, to the Eddie DeBartolo years. So anyway, that's my rant. Thanks for listening. Yeah. We'll do it again next week, but we'll let people go home and do what they got to do. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all.
Right on.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.